Welcome everyone. I'm Dawn Price, a financial aid advisor at Loyalist College within the financial aid office. We are located in the enrollment service office of the Kente building at Loyalist College. Today I'm going to discuss financial planning for college and OSAP for the 21-22 academic year. This is new for me as we usually get to meet potential students and parents in person at our open houses or at the college or high school visits and have discussions about OSAP and schooling. But due to COVID and the trying times, this will be our way to get the information out to potential Loyalist students and their families. So during my presentation, I'm going to discuss what key questions to ask yourself before attending college, the estimated costs of a year at Loyalist College, and the resources to help pay for school. I will also discuss OSAP, the application, and Loyalist College bursaries. We always tell students, unfortunately, finances and OSAP are a very boring subject, not very interesting, but if you know how you're paying for school and where your funds are coming from, it will relieve a lot of stress and you will be able to concentrate more on your studies and being successful. Some of the questions you should be asking yourself, if you haven't started already, are how much will college cost? How much is your tuition? What supplies you will need for your program, as well as the books and any other costs? Where will you live? Residence, an apartment, a room off campus, or will you just stay at home with your family? What is available for financial assistance? How do you apply? Does Loyalist College offer bursaries and awards? Have I discussed these options with my family or a school advisor if needed? And most importantly, have I prepared my budget for the upcoming year? So we've done an estimated calculation of what your costs could be for the 21-22 academic year. This is for domestic students only, and this is based on living away from home. So approximate tuition for 2 semesters is roughly $4,000. Books and supplies, depending on your program, $1,500. Residence or off-campus housing, $6,000. Additional costs such as food, spending money, transportation, necessities, and of course a little fun, roughly $120 a week. So depending on your budget, total costs of living away from home can be anywhere between $11,500 and $16,500, depending on your rent and any extra costs you may incur. So now, where am I going to come up with that money to help pay for school? So some of the resources that you may have access to are summer jobs, personal savings from previous years worked. You may have a sponsorship like Indigenous funding or a tuition subsidy program through parents' employers, parental contributions, RESPs, but also note RESPs do not affect how much OSAP you will receive. They don't need to be put on your OSAP application. So bursaries and awards through Loyalist College, as well as outside of the college, loans and grants through OSAP or a bank student line of credit, and employment throughout the school year with on-campus employment at Loyalist College or off-campus part-time jobs. So what is OSAP? OSAP is the biggest funding source for post-secondary education. OSAP is a government-funded program through both federal and provincial government for full-time and part-time students that can make it easier for you to attend college. At this time, we have no information on any changes about OSAP for the 21-22 school year, as both federal and provincial governments have not made any announcements. I am going by what we know from this 2021 academic school year. So OSAP offers grants that you don't pay back unless a withdrawal from college happens, as well as loans that you pay back starting 6 months after you graduate or stop attending college. One application and you will be assessed for both grant and loan. If you are assessed for enough grant that you feel will cover your costs, you do not have to take the loan. It sits on hold for the school year and is easily accessible if needed throughout the year. Unfortunately, you cannot ask for just part of the loan to be released. If you want it released, it will be all of what you qualified for, but we always encourage all students to apply for OSAP, even if they don't need it or they don't think they will qualify. It's always worth a shot, and grants are free money that can help with schooling and your expenses for your education. So who is eligible for OSAP? It is open to Ontario residents who are Canadian citizens, permanent residents, or protected person. You do need to live in Ontario for 1 full year without being a post-secondary student if coming from another Canadian province. If this is you and you've not been in Ontario for 1 full year, you would apply for student aid from the province that you moved to Ontario from. The government considers your status, whether you're a dependent student right out of high school, independent student that has been out of high school for over 6 years, or has worked for 2 years directly out of high school for 30 hours or more a week, a married student or common law, or sole support parent. Also, they take into consideration the program you are taking, the cost of the program, your course load, how long the study period is for your program, and they will also look if you're living at home or away from home and the family size depending on your status. The ministry has allowed a certain amount for living at home and an amount for living away from home. Unfortunately, it is not based on each student's rent or bills they pay. So get started. What you will need your social insurance number, your Loyalist student number, your date of birth, as well if you're a dependent student, you will need this for your parents, your postal code, your email address, the last day you attended high school. And if you'd like someone to be able to access your information, you will need their name and date of birth due to the new government privacy regulations. If your parents or your grandparents or your aunt and uncle or a friend calls on your behalf, we cannot unfortunately give them any information due to these new regulations. You may also need, if you're on ODSP or Ontario Works, your statement from social assistance, as well as any other assets that you may have in your name. So this is what the front page of the OSAP website looks like at ontario.ca/OSAP. It's a great tool for information about OSAP, how to apply, what happens after you apply, and any OSAP updates are usually found here. If you're a brand new student, you will register for the first time. If you're returning and want to apply for second year, you would click login. So I'm going to go through the application, hit on the main points and the questions we see arise for a lot of students. At any time when applying, you can always save your application, reach out to us with questions, then log back in to complete. The OSAP application for 21-22 school year will open for students to apply late May, early June, so keep watching the website for details. So if you are a full-time student, OSAP has created an information module for first-time users, which will help you understand OSAP a bit more, what your responsibilities are as a recipient, and basic financial information to support you through your post-secondary education. It is a short self-study section with information on OSAP. You must read and answer questions at the end about what you have read. You can log in and out to complete this module, or in one sitting, it'll take approximately 15 minutes. Once completed, you can continue on to your OSAP application. So the ministry will ask you if you want to link your OSAP application to Ontario colleges. If yes is clicked, it will fill in some of the details from Ontario colleges onto your OSAP application. We have found that sometimes there are issues or errors with this linking process, so you would just come back to this page and hit no and continue on and fill in the application yourself. So once your basic profile information is completed, you'll be given an OSAP access number, otherwise known as your OAN number. This is a very important number as it will stay with you whether you're in school now or 20 years from now. This number will always be the same. It will also have had you to create a password and security questions. So please record this number somewhere safe, because to reset your OSAP number, you can either go through an online process, but if that doesn't work, unfortunately, you would have to go in person to an OSAP office, show your SIN number or proof of SIN, as well as government ID. Sometimes this is very difficult as students don't have their SIM card to provide. Unfortunately, we would have to turn you away as per the ministry guidelines. So it is very important to keep this number somewhere safe. But at this time, also due to COVID, the ministry has allowed special circumstances to reset your OSAP number. So please reach out to us if you need to have it reset. So once you get your OSAP number, they're gonna send you a new, a new user will receive an email with a code to validate your email address. The code is good for 24 hours. The ministry uses this so they can send you updates about status of application And if you need to reset your OAN, you can do it quick and easy through the online process and not come into the schools. So as you can see at the top, it's where you would put that validation code. Once entered, you won't see that question again. Just below is where you would start your full-time or part-time OSAP application. Full-time for OSAP purposes is a minimum of 60% of a course load and 40% if you are a student with disability, and you would apply for part-time OSAP if you're under those percentages. The difference between full-time and part-time OSAP is full-time covers tuition, books, and living. If approved, part-time only covers tuition and books. So most students, day school students, will be full-time applications. So now that you're going to finish up the profile part of your application, it's going to ask you if you're currently in high school. It'll ask you if you're a student with disability. If yes, this will create a document at the end of the application to print and have your doctor fill in and submit to us. If you are a student with disability, you may be eligible for the disability grant, as well as different supports through our student success team that may help you with your studies. You can also drop your course load to 40% and still maintain full-time status for OSAP purposes. You may want to reach out to our student success to discuss your options further with them. So it will also ask you if you were ever in the care of Children's Aid. If yes, again, the application will automatically not ask parental information, and a form will be created at the end of the application. Also, Loyalist College has committed to help students with a tuition subsidy for former Crown wards. So please reach out to us in the financial aid office if this is your case, and we can discuss further. So you can see at the top of the screen, the 4 steps of completing your application. Once each part is done, a check mark will come up beside it. You can save your application at any time to complete it, and it'll take you back to where you left off. So the very first step is the school search. So from the drop-down box, you will pick Loyalist College. You will need to enter your student number. This is very important as we look you up on the OSAP application with your student number. If it's not in there and your name's Mary Brown, there may be 20 Mary Browns, so putting your student number in is very important. On the program search, you will enter the first word of your program. For example, pre for our pre-health, and then hit next. You don't need to fill any of the other filters in. It will bring up all of the programs that have pre in it. You'll pick the correct one, making sure dates and your program are correct. So here it shows pre-health for the September to April term. Shows you it's a 2-term program, entering year 1 of 1. So you would just select that. All the costs that will be behind the scenes will help OSAP create your assessment. There also will be a question whether you're 100% of a course load. You would enter the 100% there. Don't worry about entering 55% or 60%. You just enter 100%. Also, there will be a question if you're taking your course online through distance education. So even though maybe some of your courses may be online due to COVID, you select no to this question at this time. So that completes step 1 of the application. Now you're on to step 2, which is about you and your current situation. So what is your status? Married, common law, sole support parent, or single? If you are common law, the rules are different for OSAP than CRA. If you have been living together for 3 years or more, you are considered common law for OSAP purposes, unless you have a child or children together and are living together. If you've been together less than 3 years and no children, you would be considered single, independent. A sole support parent is if you have your child or children 50% of the time or more. So for this presentation, I've selected single, and the application will go through as a single student who is a dependent. So it'll ask you if you've been out of high school for at least 6 years. If you have not been out of high school for 6 years, you are considered a dependent student and will need your parental information for up to 6 years of schooling. The only exception is if you graduated or left high school, worked a minimum of 30 hours a week for 24 months without going to post-secondary. At this time, OSAP would consider you independent and the application would be based on your information alone. If both of your parents are deceased, it'll not ask you for parental information, but will ask for proof such as the death certificates. So the ministry wants to know if you've ever claimed bankruptcy. If you're a dependent student right out of high school, you probably not, and your answer will be no. But if you are independent, married, common law, or sole support parent and have claimed bankruptcy, you will answer yes, and then you will have to provide documentation of the bankruptcy for the ministry to approve. These documents can take up to 6 weeks to be approved. So if this is your situation, please apply as soon as the application is open and submit the documentation. There will also ask you if you're living away from home or at home. If you are living at home to start the 21-22 school year due to COVID, you will stay at home. If you do move during the school year, we can change your application. It will reassess for living away from home costs. There'll be a form to fill in and some documentation to provide. And again, as stated earlier, the ministry allows an at-home standard amount of living and away from home amount of living. It does not ask what your rent will be, unfortunately. It's going to ask you your income received for 2020. Do not include cents on any of the income questions about yourself as well as parental. For example, if you made $20,005, if you try to enter the full amount, the application will take it as $200,005. If you are on ODSP or Ontario Works and receive benefits before your study period, you will enter it on here. It will also ask you if you are receiving bursaries or awards. You will enter it on the application as well. Students can receive roughly $2,500 students can receive roughly $2,500 in awards before it affects your OSAP application. If you do not know at this time if you will receive awards, that's okay. Just send us an email to update once you know. It's going to ask you if you have any kind of government income. If you are on Ontario Works, that will discontinue once you receive OSAP, so you don't need to enter that as income during the study period. If you are on ODSP, you do need to claim it, as ODSP will continue to cover your living, and OSAP will assess and only cover educational costs. If you do not enter the ODSP, it can create an overpayment and cause issues with both OSAP and ODSP. And again, if you are a second career student, you can apply for OSAP to help cover extra living costs, and will have to enter what you're receiving for the school year from second career. OSAP does allow students to make up to $5,600 per semester, or $11,200 for a 2-semester school term before it affects your funding. If you will be working part-time, you will need to figure out what you will make over the 33-week school year. If more than $11,200, you will enter it. If not, just click no. And again, if that changes throughout the school year, you can just email us at the financial aid office to make any changes. It asks you if you have RRSPs, you would enter it here, but do not enter RESP, which is Registered Education Savings Plans. If you are a student that has other assets, such as GICs or large savings accounts that you're not using for school, you would use it here, enter it here. If you, if a student has any other assets, they would enter it here, such as GICs or large savings accounts that won't be used for school. You do not include cars or houses. So step 3 is the parental part of the OSAP application. And again, this is for dependent students. You will need your parental information for 6 years after you graduate high school. The ministry bases the application on the family unit that you live with. It could be both your parents. It could be a single mom, single dad. It could be mom and stepdad or dad and stepmom. This all depends on your personal situation. Be aware that even though you are entering parents' information and the funding is based on parental income, you, the student, is responsible for the loans you receive, and it will be in your name when it comes time for payment. It will ask for parental information. I've only added the parent 1 information slide. If you do have 2 parents, you would fill in the same information for parent 2. But at the top, you can see it states a family breakdown. This is if you are not in contact with your parents due to family issues like alcohol abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, and there will be documents that you have to provide if this is your case. I want you to know if this is your situation, all documents are only looked at by the coordinator of financial aid to approve the breakdown. They are sealed, not shared in any way, and kept confidential in your file. You do not need to provide proof every year, just a letter from yourself stating that your situation is the same as the previous year. So the ministry unfortunately cannot take into account just a family rift that your parents do not want to provide the information for your application to process. This would be called a parental refusal. And unfortunately, if this is the case, there are no options. So if you do have questions about family breakdowns, please email us at the email we'll provide at the end of the slideshow, and we can give you more detailed information. So you will fill in all about your parents. If your parents will live within 30 kilometers of the college, but you do not live with them, there is an appeal to get away from home living. You can check under the form section of the OSAP website, or again, contact us. So again, it will be your parents' 2020 income tax that you will need for the 21-22 application. If your parents have not done their income tax, they can estimate what their income was by looking at their T4s. The grants that you receive by both ministries are based on parental income. So if a dependent student, it's based on parental income, your income if a single student, and your spouse's income if common law or married. So if the taxes are not filed within the timeline given, and the ministry cannot verify income with CRA, you could possibly have your grants turned to loan. So it is very important for taxes to be filed. The ministry will send out notifications if you fall into this category and give you a timeline of when the information is needed before grants turn to loan. There is also a question not showing on the screen about how many dependents in your family and how many are in post-secondary, as this will help the OSAP assessment and more funding may be available. OSAP takes into consideration parents would have to split costs for more than one student in post-secondary. So now you've completed the application, you can review and submit. So once submitted, you will not be able to make any changes. You will need to contact the financial aid office to make those changes for you. So early to mid-July, you will get your assessment of how much funding you qualify for. And at that time, if you only want to take the grant funding, you can select that option on the application, or again, contact financial aid. Also under the funding page, it will show you exactly how much OSAP will release each semester, as it is a 60-40 split for loans, a 50-50 split for grants. So you will receive more funding first semester than second. So you may need to save some of that money from the first installment to carry over and help cover your second semester costs. If you feel your funding is low or you want someone to look over the application, we are happy to do that to make sure there are no appeals, or if there are any appeals, we can do those on your behalf. So your funding will not be released if all of your documents have not been processed. So you will need to check under the documents required page on your OSAP application. You'll need to submit them to your financial aid office, and they can also either be uploaded on the ministry website or mailed to Loyalist College for processing. So there will be signature pages for students, for your parents, for spouse, depending on your status. They also may ask for marriage certificates, birth certificates of children, affidavit of common law or sole support parent. Again, these all depend on your status. Indigenous or permanent residency documentation, children's aid verification form, permanent disability verification forms that will be printed if you stated yes on those questions. They will need to be filled in by the correct doctors or children's aid, and you would send those again to the financial aid office. So 1 to 2 days after submitting your application, you will receive an email from the National Student Loan Service Center with a link to process the Master Student Financial Agreement. This will also come with a 10-digit number. So the National Student Loan Service Center is the third party that processes the funds and releases them from OSAP, as well as collects the money once you're done school for the loans that you have in total. So by creating an account with the National Student Loan Center, That's how the banking information, they'll ask you for that on that website. That's how the money gets into your bank, and then they will also collect the money at the end. And you can check on the National Student Loan Service Center website for any payments that you've made back. You should always check the OSAP website for any updates. Make sure all documents have been received a few weeks after applying and submitting them. So once your application states confirmation of enrollment, now you wait. The week before school starts, your financial aid office will confirm your enrollment, releasing funds. It will pay the college if tuition is owing, and the remainder will go to your bank account. Students will receive funds usually in the first week of school. You may need to buy your books or supplies before you receive OSAP funds, but most programs realize that you won't get funding till the first week and are okay if you don't have the books right away. We do suggest, if you want your funds to be released in time for the first week of school, to have an application and all documents processed by the first part of August, but you do have until 60 days before the end of your school year to apply for OSAP, and it will retroactive to the beginning of the year. So that's all about OSAP. So now let's talk about free money. Now I'm going to talk about the Loyalist College bursaries and awards. For a smaller college, we have over $1 million in funding that we give out in bursaries and awards to help students. We have entrance scholarships based on academic and athletic merit. We have entrance bursaries for first-year students based on financial need. The application for this bursary will go out by email to students in early May. If selected, $500 will go towards your tuition. This is for domestic students only, and we usually give out around 200 of these for the fall, and then we have more for January start students as well. There's also returning student bursaries, second and third year students based on financial need. Both domestic and international students are eligible for this bursary. Again, we have other bursaries based on financial need. We have first generation bursaries, Indigenous bursaries, the former Crown Award tuition incentive, as well as other awards based on faculty selection and community donors. The bursaries and award application opens August 23rd for the fall semester for 3 weeks for students to apply. So watch your Loyalist College emails for updates in the process. We have more awards for the winter and spring semesters as well. We always encourage students to apply every semester, as you never know what you could receive to help with your education and living costs. There are alternative sources of bursary funding outside of Loyalist College. These websites are the 3 that are most popular: scholarshipscanada.com, yconic.ca, campusaccess.com. Also, you can research for awards through your parents' workplace, maybe where you work. We do know that McDonald's, Tim Hortons, Walmart are a few that have awards for students that are employees. If you or your parents belong to a service club or an organization, they may have awards. If you play an organizational sport, that you may want to check with them as well. If you are just graduating high school, you should be checking in with your guidance office, as they will have awards that can be applied for. We do hear a lot of times that these awards don't get applied for, and so you may want to check in with your guidance office to make sure that you're applying for everything that you can possibly get. There are awards out there for students to apply for. You just need to research and ask the questions. So your next steps: ask the questions, have the conversations with family and guidance counselors, complete that budget to make sure you know where your funding is coming from and how you'll pay for school. Apply for OSAP, bank loans if needed, bursaries and awards. So that is my presentation for today. I hope everyone took away some great tips and a little bit more information about what is out there to help students with post-secondary education costs and how to apply. So if any questions, our email is financialaidoffice@loyalistcollege.com. You can email us there and we will get back to you as soon as possible.